What do you get when you mix Irish rock, a famous film, and a battered guitar? Glen Hansard. And that's pretty cool, right?
Hi, I'm Leah, feeling super curious today and ready to follow the thread wherever it goes.
And I'm Garrett, feeling pretty chill and ready to explore Glen Hansard's fascinating journey. This is Laid Back Learning with Leah and Garrett.
A journey through Irish music, film, and activism, from the streets of Dublin to an Oscar stage, and right back to those same streets to busk for charity. That arc alone has layers, right? Personal moment to set the scene. I once stumbled on a busker on Grafton Street in Dublin playing Falling Slowly. It was rainy, people were huddled under awnings, and the chorus drifted out like a blanket. I didn't know the performer, and the song just stopped time. Later I learned it was Glen Hansard's song from the film Once, and that street energy is exactly where he started. That's when I went down the rabbit hole of his records and his story.
All right, let's set the stage for who we are talking about. Glen Hansard was an Irish singer and songwriter, and also an actor, born in Ballymun, Dublin, in 1970. He led the rock band The Frames, made intimate folk music The Swell Season, and put out thoughtful solo albums on the Anti label, a musician-friendly record label known for art-first releases. He was also the guy from Once, the small film that won big. And before all of that, he was a busker, a street performer playing for tips and for the moment.
That busking part matters. He left school at 13 and learned to hold a crowd one song at a time. Busking is like a live laboratory. If a lyric is soft, the wind takes it. If a rhythm is dull, people walk away. His voice and guitar got weathered right there, and even his instrument tells that story. He played a Takamine NP15 acoustic nicknamed The Horse, worn down from years on the street and on tour. That guitar became a symbol of the mileage in his music. Why do you think the busking shaped him so deeply? I mean, plenty of people start there, but not everyone carries that feel forever.
Because busking is pure feedback in real time. No lights, no safety net, just contact. It trained him in dynamics, how to go from a whisper to a shout without losing the thread, and it opened him up to people and ideas, including the Hare Krishna movement, a devotional community he connected with after meeting followers on the street. That sense of service showed up later in his charity work. Then Once happened, a film about a busker that turned his street-born songs into an international story. That felt like a loop closing in the best way. Let's roll on to the early years. He grew up in Ballymun, a part of Dublin that people often describe with a lot of heart and a lot of grit. At around 13, he left school and hit the streets to play. By 1990, he formed The Frames, a rock band that became a backbone of Ireland's alternative scene, and they toured hard. Their early albums, like Another Love Song in 1991 and Fitzcarraldo in 1995, helped cement a loyal following. In 1991, he also acted in The Commitments, an Alan Parker film about a soul band in Dublin that got BAFTA recognition, playing a guitarist named Outspan Foster. That movie put his face on screens while the band kept grinding on stages.
Moving right along, the Frames kept releasing albums. Dance the Devil in 1999, then For the Birds in 2001, and live documents like Setlist in 2003 that captured how electric their shows were. Around the same time, he met Markéta Irglova, a Czech musician, at a festival her parents organized. They began collaborating years later. By 2006, the Frames had The Cost, and Glen also released music as The Swell Season with Irglova, joined by Marja Tukkanen, a Finnish violinist and violist, and Bertrand Gallon, a French cellist. The chamber folk vibe they found together set the stage for their film Leap.
Influence-wise, he often pointed to a kind of holy trinity. Leonard Cohen, who wrote deeply poetic songs, Van Morrison, the Irish soul and folk icon, and Bob Dylan, the American songwriter who redefined folk rock. In 2007, he supported Dylan on tour in Australia and New Zealand, which felt like a full circle. He covered Morrison often and even had 2 Morrison songs on a special edition of the Once soundtrack. Those roots explain the lyrical weight and the swing in his singing.
Here's the middle stretch where the story lifts. Once premiered at Sundance in 2007, won the Audience Award, and felt like a diary you could sing along to. Glen and Marquetta co-starred and co-wrote the songs. The song Falling Slowly won the 2008 Academy Award for Best Original Song, an Oscar. The soundtrack got Grammy nominations too. Suddenly, their small-scale, busker-shaped music traveled everywhere.
They kept going as the swell season, releasing Strict Joy in 2009. Around then, he voiced an Irish busker on The Simpsons, a cameo that winked at his origin, and he recorded a Dylan cover for the film I'm Not There in 2007. Then the Eddie Vedder chapter began. Vedder, Pearl Jam's singer, brought Glen on tour in 2011 and again later in 2022. They built a durable friendship that spilled into songwriting for Flag Day in 2021. He even played the PJ20 Festival in 2011 with The Horse, and that scarred-up guitar became instantly recognizable in that rock circle.
Solo work arrived with Rhythm and Repose in 2012 on Auntie, and it reached number 3 in Ireland while making a solid showing in the United States. He slid songs onto the Hunger Games releases, co-writing Come Away to the Water and performing Take the Heartland, which showed he could write for big film worlds without losing intimacy. He popped up on the TV drama Parenthood performing High Hope, keeping that screen and music crossover going. Then came Didn't He Ramble in 2015, a warm, folk-leaning record that later got a Grammy nomination for Best Folk Album. Along the way, he shared stages with Bruce Springsteen in Kilkenny in 2013 and sang Irish classics with Ed Sheeran at Croke Park in 2015.
He kept releasing, Between Two Shores in 2018 and This Wild Willing in 2019, which leaned into adventurous arrangements, plus EPs like Drive All Night and a tribute to Jason Molina, an American songwriter he admired. All that shows a steady current of work, not just a spike from once. And he never got too serious to play with form. For Irish radio, he reworked Justin Timberlake's Cry Me a River and Britney Spears' Every Time, turning them into folk-toned confessionals. That flexibility is part of the charm.
Now the final chapter, where his music and his public heart ran side by side. Every Christmas Eve from 2010 onward, he led an annual charity busk outside the Gaiety Theatre in Dublin to raise funds for the Dublin Simon community, which supports people experiencing homelessness. The images of packed sidewalks and surprise guests became a tradition. He also joined anti-austerity protests like the water charges demonstrations in 2014, and in 2016 into 2017, he supported the Home Sweet Home occupation at Apollo House, which aimed to draw attention to homelessness. Real talk, that is art tied to action.
There were more screen ties, too. He appeared in Cyrano in 2021, a music-centered film, and co-wrote songs with Eddie Vedder for Flag Day that same year, earning credits at the Hollywood Music and Media Awards. In 2022, he recorded Take Heart with Marketa Irglova, Bono of U2, and Ukrainian refugees to support people affected by the invasion of Ukraine. He sang Fairy Tale of New York with Lisa O'Neill, accompanied by the Pogues at Shane MacGowan's funeral in 2023, a heavy and historic moment for Irish music. He later joined a march in 2025, marking 3 years since the full-scale invasion, which fit his record of showing up in person as well as in song.
In his personal life, he married Mare Saritza in 2022, and they had a son that October. They split time between Ireland and Helsinki, which kind of mirrored his cross-border collaborations. He kept releasing music with All That Was East Is West of Me Now in 2023, and the swell season returned with Forward in 2025. Then in July 2026, he died in a motorcycle crash in the Strawberry Beds area outside Dublin at age 56. Tributes poured in. Ireland's Taoiseach Micheál Martin spoke about his cultural impact. Former President Michael D. Higgins called out his gift for storytelling, and Bono remembered him as the Archangel of Ballymun. That phrase really lands. It captures how rooted he was in his home place.
Here's a tricky corner to unpack. People sometimes blur the lines between awards attached to films and awards attached directly to the people who made them. The Commitments was BAFTA recognized as a film, and he appeared in it. Cyrano was Golden Globe nominated, and he had a small role there. Once is different. He co-wrote the music and acted, and the song Falling Slowly won the Academy Award for Best Original Song, a win that directly includes him and Marketa Irglova. So the accolades in the first two cases attach to the movie's overall, not to him personally, while once includes a direct songwriting win for him.
I hear that, and still, I think the significance of his roles in award-recognized films matters for the cultural picture. Being in The Commitments tied him early to a global snapshot of Irish music on screen. Popping up in Cyrano later linked him to a modern musical film moment. And with Once he crossed the bridge fully, from acting with a guitar to writing a song the Academy honored. That crossover appeal, from busker to actor-songwriter, is part of why he reached people beyond folk circles.
Totally. My angle is just about accuracy. When people list awards, it's easy to assume he personally received a BAFTA or a Globe for those films, which isn't the case. But those credits still boosted his profile, opened doors to directors and music supervisors, and set the stage for later soundtrack work like Flag Day. So even if the trophy doesn't bear his name in every case, the ripple effect was real.
Speaking of ripple effects, the pop culture footprint is wide. Once became a stage musical that later earned a Grammy for Best Musical Theater Album, so the songs lived again in a new form. He made that light-hearted cameo on The Simpsons as a busker, one of those forever pop culture nods. I'd love a documentary that traces his busking roots into his activism, showing how playing for passers-by grew into the Christmas Eve busks and the housing rights actions. That's a through line worth filming.
All right, here's a what-if that has some weight. What if Once hadn't premiered at Sundance in 2007? No audience award, less early momentum, and maybe no Oscar night for Falling Slowly. How does that rewrite the map?
I picture him staying fully focused on music, and the frames taking an even bigger international swing. They already had the live intensity in the catalog, and without the film orbit, he could have poured every song into the band. The swell season may still have happened, the chemistry was there, but perhaps as a touring acoustic project that built slowly across Europe rather than suddenly worldwide. He was always a worker. I think he would have ground out a bigger presence city by city, and the songwriting would still have found its way into hearts, just with fewer red carpets along the path.
I can see that, and I also imagine a life even more rooted in Dublin. More nights on small stages, more Christmas Eve busks, maybe even earlier and deeper involvement in housing actions like Apollo House. Without the film schedule, he might have doubled down on community projects and mentorship, showing up on Irish TV like Other Voices, which he did host, and pulling new songwriters into the circle. The art would still travel, but maybe the center of gravity would sit firmly on Grafton Street vibes rather than Los Angeles award shows.
Stay curious and keep exploring the stories behind the music.
And remember to keep it chill and open-minded. Until next time on Laid Back Learning.